Hi again, welcome to Indycar on Monday morning. My name's Gordon Ross. I tried to broadcast this show earlier on, but we were interrupted just by poor signal. It wasn't anything suspicious. Today's show is about the art school, first of all. We know that the art school burnt to the ground 2 days ago. Fire brigade are still on the scene damping down the school after 3 whole days. It's still not safe for anybody to enter the building. They're still worried about flare-ups. I was sent a photograph by another viewer yesterday which shows the early stages of the fire before the art school actually was engulfed in flames. And what the photograph appears to show is from the vantage point of a building, I'm presuming across the road and quite high up, maybe a block of flats, the O2 music venue roof well alight, but the art school still completely unaffected, not on fire. Now, it would make sense, actually, for the fire to spread up the hill and not down. I've never heard of a building on top of a hill setting fire to a building below it. It's a very unusual thing to have happen. It was assumed that the art school had caught fire first and burning debris had rained down onto the roof of the buildings below and set light to them. But it now is beginning to look as though the opposite has happened, that the video and photographic evidence that's beginning to come out from people's phones is starting to tell a slightly different story. But this was the first photograph I've seen which shows only the roof, or apparently only the roof of the O2 ablaze and the art school untouched. Remember, the art school was surrounded by wooden planking and scaffolding and staging while the restoration effort on the west wing was continuing, and it's entirely possible that the scaffolding caught fire and the plastic sheeting around that scaffolding, which was shielding the building, also could easily have combusted, and that fire would have spread very quickly to the new wooden structure of the hen run, which runs along the top of the timber roof of the art school. So I'm speculating here, but I'm speculating from the point of view of somebody who knows the art school structure very well, having worked there for 17 years, and also having done some of the early fire inspections of that building many years ago. I know how the building would burn if it did start to burn. So it looks increasingly like perhaps there was some kind of arson attack on the building below, and that has spread up the hill to the scaffolding and the staging and set light to the wooden structures of the art school's roof. That's speculation on my part, but that's the way it looks from the photograph that I've seen. Now, moving on to the news this morning that one of the largest port companies, and I would say port companies, I mean seaports, harbour companies in the UK, has suggested that post-Brexit that their ports, particularly in the north of England, be given what he called supercharged freeport status. Now, a freeport, as in his definition, meant that goods and components coming into the freeport in England from ships from abroad would land in this freeport zone without paying any taxation, without paying any World Trade Organization taxation, import taxes to the UK. And therefore, companies positioned in the freeport zone around that harbour, any companies manufacturing things which use those components, could then manufacture those components and export them from the freeport without having paid any importation duty or taxation to the British government. And this would somehow or other turbocharge the entire region and create a massive number of jobs. He neglected to point out that it would also reduce massively the amount of import taxes coming into the UK from foreign manufacturers. So this is obviously another one of these schemes which is being proposed by business people and by the Tories themselves to try and offset the coming cliff edge World Trade Organization tariffs that are inevitable in the case of a no-deal Brexit. In Ireland, the Tories had seriously proposed a 10-mile wide trading zone along the border with the Republic, and in that 10-mile wide corridor, businesses, manufacturing companies, farms, suppliers of all kinds would trade across the border freely, but it would be a buffer zone between one administration, the UK, and the EU. Now, I don't think it would ever work, and I doubt very much if the EU would wear it, because it's cheating the system. It cheats the entire system. It defeats the entire purpose of having import and export tariffs or taxes, which all countries charge each other for importing and exporting goods. It's a normal way of trading. It's a way of getting taxation from goods coming into your country. So I don't think it's going to happen. So this was on the news this morning. It was a serious proposal to try and revamp the north of England. I can understand the north of England needs revamping, but I can't see this turbocharged Freeport thing gaining any traction at all, because apart from anything else, Scotland has its own ports as well, and were we independent, we would have more of our ports in operation, and we would have far more jobs coming because of our ports suddenly becoming busy again. Those of you who, like me, live in Glasgow or around the River Clyde will tell you that the ports in the River Clyde are deserted most of the time. There is very little trade coming into and out of Clyde Port. It's very, very weak. It would be a lot stronger were we independent. Anyway, moving along to the final part of today's show, and that was what was it to do with? Because I've lost the plot here. We were talking about oh yes, the NHS. That's what it was. I knew there was something else the Tories were up to this week. The NHS. We've had the Health Secretary on the television this morning saying that somehow or other, from down the back of the Westminster sofa, they've managed to find a huge amount of money that they can pump into the NHS every week, just as Boris Johnson said there would be. This is the dividend for leaving Europe. But when he was questioned about it, Hunt didn't really seem to know where the money was coming from, and he struggled to answer any questions about where the money would be found. So the magic money tree seems to have sprouted again, and when the Tories needed it, the tree has sprouted out of the earth and provided limitless money for them. The best that Jeremy Hunt could come up with was that the money would be found from taxation. And the implication of that is that taxes will rise dramatically to pay for the shortfall in the funding of NHS England. I don't believe a word of it. Frankly, I think all of these mad schemes, including the turbocharged Freeports, the great what was it called? The Northern Powerhouse, High Speed 2 linking the north and the south. All of these big schemes, all of these massive schemes are nothing but fluff. They're hot air, they're smoke and mirrors to deflect people from the whole point of Brexit, which is that it's going to be drastic, there won't be any trade deal, and they can keep stringing people along like this almost indefinitely, but there comes a point on the 29th of March next year when all the rubbish has to stop, and we're faced with the stark reality of being alone again, without any friends, paying large amounts of import tax to other countries, and having other countries pay large amounts of importation tax to our economy as well. And when that happens, trading is going to become very, very difficult overnight. Not only that, but the ports will struggle to suddenly meet the demand for all the paperwork, the warehousing, the long waits, the queues for the ports, the 17-mile tailbacks up the motorways of trucks trying to get through port authorities, trying to clear customs. It's all going to come home to roost on the 29th of March. And yet we're still hearing these same fables, this magical thinking coming from the UK government and many of its supporters. I don't think any of it will happen, frankly. One thing I do think will happen, people were discussing this morning about the art school. Will it be rebuilt? Well, I predict it will be rebuilt for a simple reason. I think the art school burning down was not the responsibility of the art school this time. I don't believe that they were responsible. I also don't believe, looking at the photographic evidence, that the contractors were responsible either. So it comes down to where the fire started. If the fire started at the venue down the hill, then the insurers of that venue will be responsible for funding the full rebuilding of the Glasgow School of Art Mackintosh building, because it's not just an art school. This is the point about it. It isn't just an art school. The art school is about 7 or 8 buildings around that campus, and they all form part of the campus. The Mackintosh School is a museum piece. It's an architectural treasure. It would be like in Paris, the Eiffel Tower collapsing, or it would be like Westminster Abbey being gutted by fire in London. Do you think they wouldn't rebuild those? You know, it's that important to Glasgow and Scotland. It attracts thousands, hundreds of thousands of tourists every year, and it's renowned around the world as an architectural masterwork. And yet people are actually talking this morning on Kay Adams' show, of all things, about not rebuilding it and just building something new out of the ashes of it. That would be a catastrophe. I've seen the modern buildings that have been built across the road from that. The big green cube, the Reed building that replaced the Fowlis building where I used to work, is a hideous monstrosity. The art school was a genuine palace. It was like a fairy tale castle inside. The detail was absolutely exquisite. And thousands of artworks have gone up in smoke. All the records will have gone up in smoke. And the art school itself used to have its administration in that building. I hope they don't still have it in there, because it will cripple the school completely. It's already suffered greatly through the last fire, but this fire could finish the art school from the point of view of actually being a business of teaching. I think Dougal Cameron, who is one of the previous directors of the art school, had the right idea, that the Glasgow School of Art Mackintosh building should have been maintained as a museum, as a public museum, a sort of showpiece for the city. And the main art school should have moved from Garnet Hill to a greenfield site where it could build a proper 21st century campus. That was Cameron's vision originally, was to maintain the Glasgow School of Art's original building, maybe not as a fully fledged art school, but perhaps running evening classes, but not as a functioning art school, but as a national treasure. And maybe that's what should happen now. But I believe it should be rebuilt. But I don't believe that public money should be spent on it, because it is not, I don't think, the art school's fault. And I don't think it's the fault of the contractors on this occasion. I don't think anybody in the art school is actually to be blamed for this. It looks from the photographic evidence that the fire started elsewhere. And if that's true, then the full repayment of the rebuilding costs for the art school would have to be borne by the insurance company of the other building. Anyway, that's my view, having looked at the evidence this morning. You can judge from for yourself. These pictures of the O2 on fire and the art school not are actually circulating on the internet at the moment, so have a look and see what you think. You'll see them online on Facebook and on Twitter and other social media platforms this morning. My view is the art school didn't catch fire by itself. I think it was an external ignition source and it set fire to the scaffolding around it. That's how it looks to me anyway. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Contact me in the usual way if you have anything else that you would like me to cover. I will be appearing at an event in Kirkintilloch in July. More details on that later. It's in the second week of July, and I'll give you some more details about when that will be if you want to come along. And I'll be giving a quick talk about Indycar and about social media and about the revolution and the democratisation of the media in the whole world, actually, but mostly how it pertains to Scotland and how it has helped the independence movement grow to where it is today. So that'll be coming up in the next couple of shows. I'll give you some more details on that talk. But bye for now.